to be here with you.
Sorry.
As mentioned previously, no, it's okay. As mentioned previously, I am a former Sunshine Method tutor, and I also do early intervention therapy with toddlers and children on how to help them communicate their basic wants and needs. And I also have a advocacy company as well. So I did make a PowerPoint going over ways to incorporate IEP and 504 plans into a tutoring session. I'm going to share my screen so we could get started. And as mentioned previously as well, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Okay. So we're going to start off with what is the difference between an IEP and a 504 plan. So an IEP plan are typically for students that academic learning environment is directly affected by their disability. So autism, ADHD, there's 13 categories, but I'll just say a couple. So autism, ADHD, deaf or blindness, or deaf and blindness, dyslexia, any speech impairments, traumatic brain injuries, but there is a total of 13 categories. So me and Ariana was speaking earlier, and we were just talking about if you do see any of these on the student's background, like let's say the student has autism or the student has ADHD, it is okay to ask the parent on your initial phone call, hey, does your child have an IEP or 504 plan? Because that'll kind of open up the conversation of the IEP and 504 plan goals and how to obtain it. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so 504 plan are for students that are recovering from a serious illness or injuries. So like a broken arm, diabetes. For instance, my little brother, just tell a short story. My little brother, he was in honors his whole life. And then he got into a car wreck when he was like in the 6th grade, and he kind of lost his memory a little bit. So my mom had to go and create a 504 plan for him with the school, and he got that extra care and attention. And when he got better and he got his memory back, then he was able to adjust back into his regular school routine. So that's like 504 plans are sometimes like provisional or temporary, while IEP plans, those are going to be the plans that are going to like be stationary until the kid or child graduates high school, more than likely. But both plans exist to help students access academic accommodations. That is their goal, to help and promote accessibility for sure. Okay, so the next one is how to obtain your IEP or 504 plan. So as discussed earlier, discuss it with the parent. If you see any of the categories, or if you see the kid have the autism or ADHD, any impairments, learning impairments, kind of asking the parent on your initial call, do they have either or both? Some students have both. And then you let the parent know, hey, me as a tutor, I can't call the school and ask to get that. So here's what you need to do. So if you don't already have a copy, talk to the guidance counselor, let them know that I am going to be the child's tutor and that you want to obtain a copy so that we can discuss and monitor the goals. And then once mom or dad does that, it does not take a long time. You should get it back within the same week, to be honest. Then they could also go over like the goals with you, or you could say, hey, can you just send me a copy of the goal page as well? Because they have a page with just like the IEP or 504 plan educational goals. when the parent reaches out to the school and the guidance counselor and lets them know your name and what you do, you should be able to email their teachers. For instance, when FSA come around, any major testing comes around, kind of letting the teacher know, hey, William has an IEP plan and 504 plan, just a heads up that he might need extra time on those tests. I have seen where some children at some schools with IEP and 504 plans, when FSA come around and they don't have anybody to really advocate for them, and mom and dad is super busy, they don't get that extra time they need, or they fail the FSA because they didn't get the extra time and the school didn't really honor those IEP and 504 plan goals. So with you having it, you're like an extra set of eyes where you can even remind the parent, hey, FSA is coming up. Make sure you talk to the guidance counselor. Make sure he gets that extra time on the FSA because that's a part of his goals. Okay, so that's how to obtain the IEP plan and 504 plan and what those two plans are. Do we have any questions so far?
Yes, I have one question,
okay.
if I may. So first of all, we need to ask the parents to reach out to the teacher and the school counselor before we proceed and call the school.
Yes, so most of the time it's the guidance counselor. So you get your student, you see, for instance, that they have autism. You're doing that initial call and you're saying, hey, when I was looking at the background, I noticed William had autism. Does William have an IEP or 504 plan? Sometimes they don't, or sometimes they're getting in the swing of things and trying to get one developed. But if he does, then you say, hey, okay, well, do you mind if you don't already have a copy? Because some parents, like, they have a copy of everything and they could just send it to you. But if they don't already have a copy, then you could say, hey, can you reach out to his guidance counselor so that you could get a copy and then you could send it to me. And then that way I could tailor our lessons for his IEP or 504 plan goals. Once she talks to the guidance counselor about it and you do get the IEP plan, a copy of that, then you could also let her know that, you could, in the initial conversation, you could let her know, like, hey, you could reach out to the teachers and let them know that William also has a tutor, just in case there's anything he's struggling with or anything, and you could give mom or dad your email and phone number to give to the guidance counselors, which will give to the teachers. So really you're going through the guidance counselor.
Sounds good. Right. Thank you.
No problem. But yeah, I've had a parent do that where they reached out to the guidance counselor. The guidance counselor put all the teachers, the students' teachers on an email and let them know, hey, this is Crystal Jordan. She's working with, let's say, Bob. If you have any questions or concerns, you could reach out to her and she could do the same. And that way you could have that open line of communication. Okay, any more questions? We're good. Okay. So I did 5 incorporation tips for incorporating the IEP and 504 plan. So the first one is going to be your introduction. So asking the students what they think will work for them during your tutoring session, right? So we all have our forms of how we like to tutor students, but sometimes they may be auditory learners, visual learners. There's quizzes online, and you can make it fun. You could do like a learning quiz with them to kind of see how they learn best, right? But some kids might say, I hate watching videos. Like I always doze off, you know, when I'm like during tutoring and I just have to watch a lot of videos. I don't think that helps me. So then you kind of know like, hey, like, let me cut down on videos. Let's do more so talking through the material. But specifically, if you have a student that's an auditory learner, like I said, you might want to talk the material out instead of doing videos. For instance, a kinesthetic learner, you might want to use your whiteboard or blackboard things, especially with math and geometry, and letting them sharing your screen and giving them the remote access and letting them write the questions and answers on the whiteboard. Also, asking about their note-taking skills. Some students are not really good at taking notes. So some students like me, I've always been the type of person where if I write it down, it's kind of secured in my brain. But if not, even if I type it, I forget sometimes. So for some kids, especially with learning disabilities, writing kind of helps them retain that information a lot more. And then learning games. Some kids, especially Gen Z and millennials, they like different games. That's how they relate to things. And there's tons and tons of like games specifically tailored for kids with autism or ADHD that is really beneficial and helpful. And we'll talk about those resources as well. And then also just remembering that students with learning disabilities tend to have more strengths in one area than another. So you just really want to build and gear your sessions towards their strengths, especially if they have major tests coming up or if they're behind. Find out what their strengths are and build on that. Does anybody have any questions so far? No, okay. All right, being engaged throughout your sessions is really important, especially since we are online. I always have a rule that the students need to keep their camera on. And for me to try to make sure I'm maintaining as much eye contact as possible. If you have a child with like autism, and that's their learning differences, sometimes they have trouble with eye contact. So I'm not saying to have them have eye contact with you the whole time, but you making sure you as a tutor keep your camera on, and then at least having them keep their camera on as well. That way they know that you're not just going through the motions of tutoring, that you're actually there and engaged with them. Also checking in on the student during the session. So if you're having them work out a math problem, hey, how are you feeling about this lesson so far? Or should I go back? If you're seeing them do the Blackboard, for example, and they're kind of like stuck on the second step, oh, should I go back and re-review certain topics? Are you stuck on that? Just checking in on them a little bit. The more you check in with them, the more opportunities you create for students to say what they're unsure about. Okay, because sometimes they may be too shy to say it themselves, and they may just go with the motions and be like, yeah, I got it. So with you kind of checking in and letting them know, hey, it's okay if you don't get it, you know, let's go back. I don't care if we have to go back a million times. Opening up that door for that will help them let you know and feel comfortable with letting you know, I don't get this part, even if you already went over that part 3 times. Okay, let's revisit it. Let's do it again, making sure that they're comfortable with telling you what they do and don't get. Okay. The next one is refrain from your own assumptions. So this is going to be really important. So we as tutors, you as tutors, you know the material very well. And we just have to keep in mind that they do not. So refrain from saying this is going to be an easy lesson. You'll get this one right away. I did this with my other students. They caught on really fast. You shouldn't have a problem, you know, because if they is doing that lesson and they don't get it, it could make them feel bad because they're not getting the lessons as quick as your other students, or they're not meeting your expectations of them getting it right away. So which makes them kind of withdraw and pretend like they understand the material, and that defeats tutoring, the purpose of tutoring. And then remember that their definition of easy and hard differs. So we just want to make that and create that environment where they are okay with getting answers wrong, and just knowing that we are there to go over the material and help them with the material as many times as we have to. Okay. Number 4 is always recap your lesson. So I say with the students that I've worked with learning disabilities, I always have them recap the lesson. So at the end of the lesson, I might go, okay, Bob, so we went over conflict and resolution. What can you tell me about conflict and resolution? Give me 3 pointers that you get, and then if they're kind of stumbling on certain parts and I know that we've went over it during that hour, then I'll fill in the gaps afterwards for them. But definitely seeing what they retain throughout the lesson and throughout that hour, and then letting them know, let's say you ask them for, you lesson plan 3 major parts with conflict and resolution that you're going to go over. So at the end of the session, you ask them, hey, can you tell me 3 things that we discussed or went over during this session? And they only get 1. So then you fill in the gap for those other 2 topics, and then you'll let the student know, we'll continue to work on that. That's okay. Like, we went over this, which you did great on. Yes, I'm happy you retained it. And then remember, we talked about this and that. So we'll start off our next session going over this and that with conflict resolution, letting them, praising them for what they do get right, and then just letting them know that you'll continue to build on the things that you had to fill in the gaps with. But remember, if a student can reiterate what was taught, it's a sure sign that they have grasped the concept. So I always say that if you can kind of teach it back to me or tell me like what I've taught you, then you pretty much got the concept of it and the gist of it. Okay. And number 5 is be specific, especially with math. So for math, thoroughly discussing each step is vital. Explain what you are doing and why. So if you had a 2-step equation, let's say it's 8n plus 7 equals 31, right? So first, I'm going to drop my 7 down, and I'm going to do the opposite of addition. I'm doing the opposite of addition because it's going to cancel out the 7 that's in the middle. Then I'm going to take my minus 7 and subtract 31 minus 7. Then I'm going to bring my 8 in down, and just kind of checking in. And remember, you're doing this step by step on the blackboard, so they're seeing it, and it's going to go a little bit slower, but definitely going step by step and actually going back and saying, okay, so why did I drop my -7 down, my -7 down? And why am I subtracting 31 minus 7? Kind of checking in with them on that. Repetition is going to be very important. But going through those steps helps students understand the process smoothly and efficiently. And I would say have them do a similar problem or the same problem you just did and explain each step as well. Like I said, repetition is very vital. So have them, you do the 8n plus 7 equals 31, explain it step by step, check in with the student while you're doing it step by step, and take it off the blackboard. Put that same equation on there and have them go through it step by step. I feel like it will make them even more comfortable and confident with it, even though you just went over it. If you're not really listening, you're not going to be able to replay it, or if you're not grasping the concept, it's going to be steps that you're missing, and at least you'll know what steps they're getting stuck on and what you need to focus on a little bit more, but repetition, 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 especially with math, is important. Okay, so as discussed before, I put two, first, I want to say Sunshine Method has awesome resources. They really do, with learning games and just learning activities. But these are two resources, Autism Speaks and the Ministry of Parenting, that, and the Ministry of Parenting is for ADHD. So these websites focus on teamwork and social communication skills, language skills, problem solving, reasoning skills, social interaction, concentration, strategy, which would be really cool to incorporate in your sessions with the students that have learning differences. So Ariana, did you want me to put these links in the chat, or were you going to add it to
So
the drive?
I am gonna end up adding it to the Google Drive, but
Okay.
if yeah, the tutors, if you guys want to take a picture of that, or if you prefer putting in the text box, just let Crystal know.
Okay, yes. But those websites, not only, they have tons and tons of resources on it, and they touch base on each subject, like activities, especially for remote tutoring, activities for language arts and math, and it just kind of keeps the students engaged. So that is actually my whole spiel on the IEP and 504 plans. Did you guys have any questions?
I just have a quick question with the live activities for the Autism Speaks and the ADHD one. Are they free? Yes.
Yeah. Yes. They're free. Any
I just wanted to just state, because I'm weird and I have to see that opportunities was misspelled. Were you aware that you had misspelled?
No.
Okay. All right.
No, I'm sorry.
So sorry that I had to bring that up. I hate to do that. And when people, they point it out, I do that in public, and my family are like, can you put teacher down for a minute? I'm weird. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll go back and fix that. I didn't. No,
It's
I have
about 4 slides back.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, was everything else good on there though?
It was awesome. I'm so sorry. I know you're gonna post it, and I know that it's gonna be used, and for me, I'm that kind of person that does the asterisk after somebody's comments online. And they misspelled something. I'm that weirdo. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. No, it's okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. Any more questions? Anything that you guys want to add?
I did want to
I
add
have a question.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Go ahead.
You're good.
I'll wait for you. Go ahead. Okay. So my question really quick. Sometimes, well, usually with my students who have been diagnosed with ADHD, sometimes they have a really hard time holding pencils. And I was wondering if any of you have an idea, like a homemade idea, quick idea to help them do something with pencil so that it's easier for them to hold pencil and so that they can write easily. Just wondering if anybody knows a trick.
Are you doing your tutoring sessions in person or online?
Online. All of them online. Yeah.
Okay, and when you're online, you're noticing that the student is having a hard time holding their pencil?
I usually learn from their parents first thing.
Okay.
At the beginning, we go over certain things and they tell me all the things they struggle with. And most of the times they struggle with holding pencil, which is curious to me, but it's common.
Michelle, in my years of experience, most special needs children have issues with fine motor ability. Always. They have low tone.
Yeah.
I have something to show you. Hold on. Go ahead. You guys go ahead.
Okay. One thing that
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
One thing that I do with my kids that I do therapy with is hand over hand. And when you run into a parent that says that and saying their kids have trouble with those fine motor skills, kind of having them take the pencil and then putting their hand over their hand and kind of writing with them and doing that exercise a couple times a day simultaneously, it gives them that confidence and security. But yeah, that hand over hand is vital with that. So that could be a tip that you tell the parents.
Okay, hand over hand.
I use it. I have used in my experience a thicker pencil or a thicker crayon to start with. It allows them to learn the grasp. Sometimes it can be the width of the instrument and it's harder to grasp. For that, if you use like a thicker one, then it's kind of like when you're teaching your children how to use a utensil to eat with, you'll notice that the thicker at the base, it allows them to learn how to grasp it correctly. If it's thicker for them to use it, then they learn how to grasp it correctly. So something like this can slip through their fingers. A thicker crayon, a thicker pencil, or a thicker marker will allow them to learn how to grasp correctly in an easier way.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
And I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say, I added in the chat what Megan just put up on the camera, which was like a pencil grip helper. So it's basically like the ball, yes, that, and it helps because they don't have to hold such a small object. And then what you want to do is you want to start off with the bigger one, you know, that big ball that she has, and then you want to kind of start going to the smaller ones until they're able to do it by themselves.
And then this one actually tells you where to put your thumb and where your fingers go.
Yeah.
And it's left or right-handed. I need these because my hands kill. They hurt every day. So this is my helper because I don't need to use strength to write.
Do they have those for stylists?
So it can work for stylists as well if it's universal. So it should go on any size, any size pencil too.
Because my recommendation, especially since we're doing remote and we're not there with the kid to do the hand over hand, would be like maybe mom getting it and then getting a stylist, and they could use the whiteboard or online blackboard, and that could be practice as well with the student using the grip and the support with the stylist and still kind of writing, you know. So I think that that'll be a good tip as well. Thank you for that question and those resources.
Can I ask one question? Megan, do you mind if I take a snapshot of you holding those different devices that can use so that I can show the parents?
I think you're asking me, you're a little broken up, but you're asking me to hold them up so you can take a picture?
Yes, I think she is. I've also added the Amazon link below.
That's right. God, thank you.
She's frozen, so I can't tell if she's done or not.
So I did want to add something else as well. Thank you so much, Crystal, for the training. But I just wanted to show you guys what an IEP plan looks like. So this one's blocked off with all the names and everything, but this is typically what an IEP plan looks like. Now it might look different, varying from the, like if it's a Miami-Dade school versus another school. And you'll typically have up here, if it was a new IEP, if it was a review, if it, whatever it was, the time, the date, the people involved. A lot of the times, if a child is receiving therapy from like a behavioral therapist or a psychologist, like they will be included in the meeting. And at times, it can even be a tutor can be involved in the meeting, because you do see different things than what the parent does. And just so you guys also know, the people who are typically in these meetings are also their teachers, their guidance counselors, and the parents. So the observations of the teachers are included on here. So it's not going to be too advanced where it's going to be out of the child's control, or out of the child's, I guess, it's going to be too advanced for them to achieve it. And it's also includes the type of disability that it's pertaining to. So if we weren't told additional disabilities when asking the families, it will be included in here. So if it's autism, developmental delay, whatever it is, it will also be on here. And it's typically, it typically needs to get renewed yearly. Right? Yearly?
Yes.
Okay. And then
Yeah,
it,
It's a 3-year re-eval.
yes. And then it includes math, English, as well as social skills. Now I'll show you guys some of the social skills on this child's background. You know, since we are a company that balances mentorship with the academics, you can go over the social skills as well. It might be a little bit harder since you're not in a classroom setting. And a lot of the goals are going to be based on the classroom setting. So, you know, one of the examples on here is continues to struggle with following. Oh no, that's their observations. Measurable. So see, this one is the measurable goal for math. So it'll be by the time frame when they're given this type of problem, they will have this type of response 80% of the time, whatever it is for that child. It can be regarding shapes, it can be regarding simple math, things like that. They have reading goals as well. So the time, 100 words correct per minute, things like that as well. And then we have the social, emotional, behavioral goals as well. This one specifically says, when given a direction from staff, the child will comply, improving success from 50% to 80% of the time as measured by classroom data. When given a situation that is frustrating, the child will resolve his feeling without aggression, improving success from 90 to 100% of the time measured by the classroom data. And depending on the different therapies, you might also want to ask what the behavioral goals of that child is too, just so that you can take a note of, you know, if this child does have non-compliance or things like that, you know, those are things that to keep in mind in your lesson, that, okay, this child might have a hard time complying to different things that I tell them to do. And this one is 22 pages long, so it has a lot of goals and things to incorporate. I'll also include this on the information to send you guys. But this is typically what it's going to look like, but also depends on the school and the county. Does anyone else have anything to add or any questions?
I wanted to show Michelle, I found what I was looking for. So I have pictures of pencil grips for both handed people. Sorry.
Great job.
If you'd like, give me your email or put it in and I can scan these and send them to you if you'd like, and you can print them out for yourself. It's up to you. I don't care.
That's awesome. And that also, oh,
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Awesome.
So they have both the right hand and left hand. And I just love how it shows where the thumb's supposed to be, the knuckle of your middle finger. And I have to laugh. Most people don't write like this anymore because they all just adapted to how they were comfortable holding that pencil.
Mhm, mhm. I also wanted to mention, with the IEP plans and 504 plans goals, like let's say you are tutoring language arts for the student, and like one of the goals said to get 100 words correctly in, how long was it? 100 words in 60 seconds, Ariana, or 60 minutes?
Let me see. Let me just check.
Okay.
100 correct words per minute as measured by classroom assessment. There you go.
Okay, so let's say that's going to be your lesson and that's what you're kind of working on with the student. Like, let's see how many words you could get in a minute, right? And let's say the student actually hits that 100-word goal in a minute. Like, you could also update mom on that and let the teachers know as well. That could be something that you're emailing the teacher about. Hey, we've been working on this during tutoring. He actually got 100 words in 60 seconds correctly. I'm not sure how you guys measure it with the classroom data. I just want you to know that that's a goal that he has achieved during tutoring. And then maybe that they could address that in the classroom, and then that could be a goal that was met on his IEP. So you definitely want to be as communicative as possible. And then also, like, just remembering that we're all a team. It takes a village, you know, especially if a child has a learning difference. So whatever you can incorporate and like update the parent on, that would be good. Especially, I love Sunshine Method's monthly reports. So you could put it in your monthly report as well when they're meeting those goals.
Ask a quick question. What are specific ways to help with our older students who have issues with organizational skills? So let's say they're doing their homework, okay, but they're not turning them into a teacher. So you're teaching them, you've gotten them to work on their homework, but it doesn't make it to the teacher's desk. It's also in their IEP as an objective that they would return, they would put stuff into the correct folders, and then the teacher would be able to access their folders. Some of them have that binder that they go to school with that has the teacher's notes in them saying, you know, put your homework finished here. But when I have a parent that has like a lot of work to do and more than one children, sometimes they're not still getting that homework from point 1 to maybe point D or C in the classroom.
My recommendation would be like visually see. So when you're on the virtual tutoring session with the student, tell the student to put the homework in the folder so where you could see it. Make sure it's in the right tab. I would say hold the binder up to the camera. Let me see that you're putting it in the right tab, you know, and praise along the way. Yay. Okay, great job. You got it in the right tab. So our next step, you need to give this to your teacher. But remember, when you're talking to the parent about getting that IEP and 504 plan, you're also asking the parent to link you with the teachers. So you will also be able to email the teacher and say, hey, William does have this paper in his binder. I just want to let you know that. So just in case, if you want to double check, the work is done, it is there. Just to ensure, I don't know if he might forget to, you know, give it to you, but I just want to tell you that it's complete and it's there. So then that'll help the teacher to kind of know to check and see and like look at the binder as well. So it's kind of helping the child both ways if they do forget. Hey, I heard your tutor told me you did your homework. Let me check. Okay, great. It's in the right folder. And then maybe the teacher would even promote independence and to say like, hey, go put it in this homework bin. But just for the teacher knowing and getting a heads up that the homework is done, it is there, and you as a tutor, like kind of taking that extra step to email them and letting them know, it kind of helps both ways, especially if the parent is really busy. Like you
Yeah.
can communicate with the teacher.
Yeah, email is a huge tip. So thank you for that. I will add that to what I'm already doing. So thank you.
Okay. No problem.
Another thing that I've used before is these token boards. At home, there's like responsibility token boards, and it's the responsibility that that child has. So it could be turning in homework, and each day of the week they can receive a star for turning in their homework, and then at the end of the week, you can work with the families on what prizes they can get. Now, this is really hard to collaborate with some families that aren't as involved and don't collaborate as much. But if you do have a family that you talk to and you're like, listen, I have this great idea, that they could visually see it and they could do it themselves and it'll be their independence, would you be willing to have a reward at the end of the week? If it's ice cream, if it's just playing a video game, like whatever it is, it could be something really easy for them to kind of be motivated to complete that.
Mhm. And even you could do like a reward for the tutoring session as well. Like, hey, if you get all your stars this week, we could spend the last 10 minutes playing a game, or we could do an educational scavenger hunt or a scavenger hunt. So sometimes with my kids, what I'll do is I'll say, okay, you have 10 seconds to go find the closest remote in your house and show me, or, like making it super like interactive and fun and kind of like giving them a reason, like you said, to motivate them and get it done. Especially sometimes if the parent is like unwilling to do it, you could find different ways to incorporate the fun and rewards into your tutoring sessions. There are even different apps and websites to make a certificate. You could give them a reward for getting dressed all week and different things that you could email to the parent and they could print out, and it could be kind of like their reward as well.
Okay. One more question, and if you don't mind, and it is, if I'm applying some of the ABA therapies and therapies that are used for behaviors in their from their IEP that are already been working in their school setting, okay, to minimize behaviors. But when they're in the home setting, when the behavior starts and I start to implement ABA therapies or other therapies that will keep a child, calmer. But the parent in the home now comes in during the session and kind of throws that all out the window by interacting or stopping me from being able to get that eye contact and to keep them focused on where we're going, because they're reactive to the behaviors. And one of the things of ABA therapy is to react to positive behaviors and not so much negative behaviors. How do I handle that situation without making the parent feel like I'm discrediting them or telling, I wanted the kindest way to say, I've got this, don't stop where you got going on right here, please.
I feel like verbiage is going to be very important. So just letting them know, hey, I noticed when we're doing tutoring, William, he does really great. He's doing, like, always start with praising, right? Always start with all the good stuff. And then you kind of lead it up to, he's doing great. He has great eye contact. But I notice sometimes if a sibling come in, or, if you come in during that session and he's doing good, it kind of gets him off track. And then I'm spending 10 to 15 minutes redirecting him. Right. And it's kind of counterproductive because we only have an hour and I want him to get the most out of tutoring. Like I always like, if you end with you wanting the child to get the most out of tutoring, it's kind of hard to argue with, like right. No parent is going to be like, you want him to get the most out of tutoring, so yeah. definitely think that that's a good closer, and just always start with what he's doing, like praising him first and then always closing with, because I want him to get the most out of tutoring, you know?
This like the example is like I will have them cooperating, and the redirection is, I've already just redirected and now they're doing what they need to, and then the parent will come by, check in on the child, see if they're focusing, and then all of a sudden we have to start all over again. And the child is now on the floor, and the parent is now holding the child in their lap, as opposed to then going from the child being interacted and easily redirected to now having new behaviors that I know as a parent who has a child with autism, they will act out more around me than they will in a school setting or an educational setting, just from when he was younger. And then, I'm always really kind when I see behaviors, because I know from a parent perspective what that feels like, and you just want the best for your child. But in that sense, now I have a student that when a parent is coming around, will promote behaviors just to get that attention. And that it can be when I'm redirecting and he is focused and he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, but then he spots the parent out of the corner of his eyes and stops. And then now because the parent came by, now it's the redirection.
Yeah, I would definitely just let the parent know, and like I said before, starting with that praise and then giving maybe a suggestion and kind of just peek in on him and not come fully in the room, or just, you can't say you can't check on your child, but just if he's not spotting you, he's going to get the most out of tutoring, because then like you said, you're spending another 5 to 10 minutes redirecting, and it's taken away from learning time. So I definitely think verbiage is going to be important, but if you just let the parent know, you're saying this out of the best interest for the child, for sure.
Yeah, another strategy that you can use is see if you can get in contact with the behavioral therapist, not the ABA therapist, the actual behavioral therapist. And you can have the conversation with the parent, be like, I've seen some behaviors that, would you be able to share with me the BCBA on on so-and-so's case? And then just call them, tell them about what you're seeing. Because that is more than tutoring, and that is something that that when they know, that's something that they can work with. These BCBAs work with parents, and they train the parents. So the mom should have consistent bi-weekly trainings by the BCBA, and this can be a goal that they incorporate in their training programs. So, be super respectful. Just say that you've seen some behaviors that you would love to have the contact for the BCBA. And, I know the BCBA would love to be in contact with you as the tutor, seeing the behaviors as well.
Yeah, because I have him both on 2 days, and I have him when he is, because he is with his father on certain days, and then he's with his mother, and it's a complete opposite child. And I don't know if it's that moving around situation where you're doing, the same task, but you're doing it in a different environment. The father can literally be in the room communicating with him, no behaviors. The mother comes around, and then there's behaviors, and then she's reacting to behaviors where the father is just like, no, and then he stops. So it's just kind of like that, where you have a split household, and then sometimes the child acts, which is common, which a child will act a little bit different in one household, but it's a different setting, it's different stimulus, it's different, complete opposite of everything. And then you have a different, environment in a different home, in a different stimulus, and then you're moving back and forth, and as a child, you're reacting in those different stimuluses. In that kind of situation. But it's, for me, in my experience, the behaviors it's like two different children in the home with the father, and then in the home with the mother. And the mother is a great mom. I mean, she's wants the best for her child. I'm not saying anything like that. I just don't know
Yeah.
how to communicate that to her.
Yeah.
But not do it in like, I want to be extra kind because of, the situation. And not only that, I definitely don't want to say, well, he's better with dad,
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to mention that with dad. Just mention what give praise and mention what you see. Give your suggestion for mom, and just let her know, like, you want him to get the most out of tutoring for sure.
Yeah, I'll be using that line. I'll be taking it. Thank you so much for your time for that. That's just one of the questions I had that has to do with behaviors and the IEP.
Thank you for your question.
Does anyone else have any questions or anything to mention before we end today's meeting? No? Okay, everything, the PowerPoint, the IEP, even the Amazon things, I will be sending that out today or tomorrow. The recording of today's class or today's workshop will be included in that as well. And you can also take a look at our YouTube channel because it's always uploaded into our YouTube channel. But other than that, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Crystal, so much for your time. If anyone has any questions that aren't pertaining this topic, you can stay after and I will have a time for some questions. But I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you again.
Bye.